Okay, well, hello and welcome to my presentation on AutoCAD. This would be assignment number 3, I believe. And my apologies as a preface for the short notice of this presentation. Evidently, there's nobody here, which would probably be my fault. So I do apologize. In any case, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whichever it may be, whatever time you're joining me here. Looking forward to exploring the utility of the modeling software known as AutoCAD. And I've titled my presentation, AutoCAD, a Manual Teaching Tool, a little bit tongue-in-cheek there. So a reasonable first question to ask, I suppose, would be to ask the question, what is it that we're trying to achieve? Well, this is my review of AutoCAD. We are going to critically examine this modeling software to see if there is a place for it within the teaching and learning space. We're going to see how well our selected media tool, how well it engages students, how well it excites students, how well it evaluates, and how well it educates them. Or if it does, maybe it doesn't do well at all. Maybe it doesn't even do it, period. And we're going to assign a report card at the end. And we're also going to cite references to sort of add validity to our points. But before we do that, I would like to take a moment to recognize that we are on the ancestral and unceded homelands of the Hakaminam and Skohomish speaking peoples. And I'd like to extend honest appreciation and gratitude for the opportunity to hold a meeting on this territory in beautiful British Columbia. A note on accessibility, closed captions are available for this video, and a transcript will be saved and posted alongside this recording. Please do make use of that if that is something that you can use. So let's define what it is that we're going to be examining here. The tool that I'm going to be reviewing is a tool known as AutoCAD. CAD is an acronym. It stands for CAD. It stands for Computer Aided Design. And this is a software used for generating models in 2D and 3D. It's commonly used by architects, engineers, construction professionals, and perhaps teachers. So a personal story about how I interact with this tool. I've been an instructor at BCIT now for about 6 months, teaching skilled trades, specifically sheet metal. I use AutoCAD on a fairly regular basis to generate models and teaching materials. I also use it even on the fly in front of a class, though we don't teach AutoCAD proper, like we're not teaching students how to use the tool. We're using it as sort of a teaching adjacent tool as a visual aid and stuff like that. But I'll open it up sometimes and actually draw out what it is that I'm trying to explain from time to time. But primarily I'm using it to generate models to use within worksheets and quizzes and things of that nature. And I found it super helpful. And I found that students really engage with the content more. And we're in a very my trade is creating things from flat into shapes, and so being able to sort of 3D model in your head is a real asset and something that we try to foster in students. And so this is a really great tool in that regard. So we want to see how well this tool stacks up against the 4 E's. So we're going to start with Excite, and I've titled this slide Play, because students do get to play and they love that. And that is exciting. So let's define our terms. So excite, how will I show my participants how this media tool excites and motivates learners, or perhaps how it falls short of doing so? Does this media tool actively engage the learner with tasks and assessment, or is it just more color, music, splash, and show? So my first bullet point under play here is hands-on. So the beauty of it is that students get to sort of just get hands-on and play around with different tool sets within it. Hands-on software like AutoCAD, it taps into students, just their curiosity and their wanting to do stuff. They don't really, I find that if I let students sort of sit back and just listen to me just talk, it's not something that they particularly engage with. So having a tool like AutoCAD for them to interact with really just taps into that natural curiosity that's already there and just helps to leverage it. It's also just a total sandbox. You start with just a blank slate and you create from that, like a blank sheet of paper. So AutoCAD just it really offers that total blank slate environment for them to just start something from scratch, which they love to do. Again, taps into that natural curiosity. Uh, Empirical evidence seems to suggest that tools such as AutoCAD and other interactive tools increase learner motivation and enjoyment. A study by Faye, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, and Oluwole in 2013 found that integrating AutoCAD into engineering education significantly improved student engagement and enthusiasm, especially when students were encouraged to explore the software freely. So I think there's that little caveat at the end when especially, right? That word especially. So I think that verb, that word freely really captures that. I think that's why that's the caveat to that is because students want to have that ability to, of course, there's constraints, but having that blank slate to create, I think, is something that really appeals, especially to trade students. So I give Excite an A plus for this. I think that anecdotally and empirically, I've seen that this is a really, really exciting tool and students really love it. Engage. So again, we want to define our terms. Engage. How does this media engage learners as active participants? Or does it score poorly in this area? A highly engaged learner will be solving complex problems, evaluating, self-evaluating, and providing feedback. A less engaged learner would be passively observing. So I've titled this slide, Welcome to the Driver's Seat. So students are in charge of design using this tool. I think that it's really excellent how AutoCAD puts learners in charge of the design process. That's literally the name of the game. They're going to be creating from a blank slate, like I said before. So it allows them to make decisions and see immediate results. So there's a cause and effect thing. If I use this tool instead of this tool, how does that work? Is there a more effective way of creating the same object? Which there always is. There's multiple tool sets and multiple ways to get to the same end result. And they get to take ownership of their work. They're building something, right? There's real-time editing and feedback. So within the tool, there's collaborative features where in this context, in a teaching context, teacher and student could be collaborating on the same thing, so to speak. So a student could be designing something and at the same time, I could remotely be viewing what they're doing and giving them feedback or even building onto their design alongside them to help them get that in order. And a real way that we saw this come to fruition, and this is before my time in teaching, was I heard back during COVID that for pattern development, which we normally do in person on a desk in pencil and paper, we were able to move more towards this digital platform where it can be done more remotely, which was handy during that time. So CAD does there's empirical evidence that suggests that active engagement with CAD tools enhances learning outcomes, according to Alias, Black, and Gray. Students using computer automated design software in project-based learning environments demonstrated greater conceptual understanding and retained more information compared to traditional instruction. So evidently, there is benefit to actually being able to handle and manipulate these projects. So I gave Engage a B. I think that it scores well in this area because it is obviously very engaging and there is means for collaboration remotely or otherwise. And so I think that's great. I think that obviously it could do a little bit better in this area in terms of actual group projects, things like that. There is limitations, of course. This isn't a tool that's purpose built for education, and its primary function is obviously to model things for design and so forth. So it can't do perfectly all the time, obviously. So educate, again, defining our terms, educate. How does this media tool educate? To what level does it educate? If we refer to Bloom's taxonomy, how does this media push thinking up to the highest levels? Or does it require lower level thinking? Examples would be recall and comprehension. So I called my slide learning by drawing. And our first bullet point is remember and understand. So this would be on on Bloom's. So AutoCAD helps students recall and recognize drafting symbols, tools, commands, layout rules, etc. through repetition and immediate feedback. So kind of harkening back to that immediate feedback tool we mentioned during the previous slide, excuse me. For example, the difference between using a line or a polyline, it sort of underscores foundational CAD literacy. You'd use one in certain contexts and not in the other. So we can sort of see those metrics of, okay, their foundational CAD understanding. There's limitations to that, which we will get into shortly. Hang on, next bullet point. My next bullet point is apply and analyze. So students apply design principles by creating orthographic projections or floor plans. So just to give context there, orthographic projection is representing faces of objects in a two-dimensional plane at 90 degrees to one another. So if you think of a cube and you can rotate that cube in 90-degree orientations, that's orthographic projections. So I'll finish the little bullet point here. So they must analyze spatial relationships between views. So that is a really cool thing for our students because that's, again, a foundational part of pattern development, of practical shop projects, is being able to model in your head what this thing will look like in 3 dimensions when it's in the flat. That is something that is super key in our program. So it really does well in helping them to comprehend that, to actually take that 3D model and rotate it around using their mouse so that they can do it with their brain later on. Evaluate and create. So this would be the highest level of Bloom's. So AutoCAD supports higher order thinking by requiring students to assess design constraints. So if I give them parameters, hey, you have to work within these parameters, it helps them to think about how to generate original solutions. So problem solving and creation, right? A study by Pectus and Urquhart found that CAD tools like AutoCAD enhance students' ability to evaluate alternatives and make design decisions, particularly in open-ended studio tasks, requiring creativity and critical thinking. So there's that caveat again, open-ended, right? So again, it's that there's constraints, but there's a lot of leash in terms of their creativity. So for Educate, I give a B. Again, it's not a purpose-built tool for education, but I think it scores well in my opinion because of the fact that that spatial perception that it seems to foster is really important. I think it does a phenomenal job. It's kind of an irreplaceable tool in my opinion for those types of things. So evaluating, again, I'm going to preface this by saying that this is not a purpose-built tool for evaluating, but you can sort of use it to evaluate, but it doesn't do a perfect job. So assessing with AutoCAD, again, evaluate. How is this media designed to evaluate or assess learning? How can it be used to assess learning? Or perhaps this media was not designed to evaluate. That's the case. Again, if we refer to Bloom's, does this media evaluate at higher or lower levels? So there's, oops, I did 2 bullet points by accident. So formative assessment is lacking. There isn't any. So it captures the product, not the process. So I can see at the end that they've done a good job, but I can't see necessarily the process unless they sort of save multiple drawing sets at various stages. And that's just kind of impracticable. So not great for that. Assessment depends on the rubric. So again, that's totally instructor based. There's no inbuilt tool for that. So again, we would use this as a teaching adjacent tool to support us as instructors, but not a standalone solution for some of these things. So skill doesn't mean understanding. Skill isn't comprehension, in other words. According to Guel and Kaya in 2005, while AutoCAD effectively measures students' drafting accuracy and CAD proficiency, meaning they've done a good project and it scored well, it doesn't capture deeper design rationale or creative intent, requiring complementary methods like design journals or peer critique. So it kind of shows, hey, I can use this tool, I can create this line, and I know how to build those shapes, but it doesn't necessarily show, hey, do you understand why we're designing it in that way, or sort of a deeper foundational understanding, which for our purposes and trades, it's not a necessary component necessarily, but it is nice to be able to see those performance metrics. It would be nice to see those. So for evaluate, I gave it a C because obviously it's not built for evaluating. We still have to do that totally outside the tool, but there are helpful parts of the tool that help us assess these deeper areas of student understanding. So there's my report card. Overall, I gave it a B. I thought it scored pretty well in the Engage and Educate, which brought us up from that C at the end there for a total overall B. I do have my citations listed here on this slide. And this work is licensed by Creative Commons license, as seen by the little icon here. If you would like access to these slides or any information contained therein, I would ask that you please reach out to me personally, and I'd be more than happy to provide you with that information. Obviously, these slides also have the BCIT logo on there, and I would just kindly ask that you don't replicate or distribute any of this content without my express permission. So please do ask for that. I'd be happy to give it. And this would be the opportunity for feedback and questions. Unfortunately, I am alone in this presentation, my own fault. Again, I apologize. And I thank you so much for your time, and I thank you for checking out this presentation.